Hit record. All right, welcome everyone. As people are getting on, I'm Dr. Kara Burkhart. I just want to introduce, because I see some of my patients are on here. This is Hillary Fredrickson, who's one of my really good friends from medical school, but she lives on the West Coast. And so it's kind of fun because we've been doctors a long time, and through all the years, we've never seen allergy seasons like these ones we've had, and we've never had so many people with gut issues as we've had. So we're coming together trying to figure out how we can help everybody and have more time with you, because of course we're always limited with these medical appointments and we can't dive deep. So this is what we're doing tonight, is we're trying to dive deep on some GI system questions. I do find, Hillary, that we get a lot of the same questions all the time. So I think we can address some of these questions because people are thinking about things, right? So if you have questions, pop them in the chat. We're pretty good at hopping those in on these live meetings. We work together in women's health a lot, so we do these meetings a lot. But I want to just introduce this concept of the inflammation and symptoms you're all having here. Literally, it looks like it's snowing out, but it's kind of like greeny, yellowy, pollen-y outside. My car is a disaster. It looks like I haven't washed my car in 6 months. I promise you I have. Everyone's coming in my office like sniffling, eyes are, watery. People are having like rashes on their eyes. All kinds of things are happening. It's just it's a crazy, crazy time here in Connecticut. So,
and California, we're a little bit ahead of you guys, but it's been the worst allergy season because we had so much rain. So the rain was beautiful, and yet the rain is making it really, it's the biggest bloom ever in California, and people are really symptomatic. So we want to talk about in general some of the hierarchies of how people get sick and how people get inflamed and what is inflammation. And so, like, starting from a really high level, what we don't want is we don't want our patients to be inflamed. We don't want them to be inflamed in their joints. We don't want them to be inflamed in their gut. We don't want them to have a lot of gut symptoms. We don't want them to have hormone dysregulation, right? And we never, ever, ever want you to get strokes, and we never, ever want you really to have a heart attack. And so
and all those things are connected.
Well, they're all, the through line for all of them is inflammation. So like in Kara and I, when we're working with fertility patients, we do a lot of work together with our fertility patients. So reducing inflammation's massively important for fertility. And as we age, for our patients who are more in perimenopause, or just older, or not trying to get pregnant, it's reducing inflammation is the secret sauce to aging beautifully. And there's a lot of different markers we can use, and testing markers we can use to identify, like, how are you aging? But one of the first things that we want to do is say, okay, if you're really symptomatic, if you're having a lot of inflammation, whether it's, like I said before, joint pain, allergies, so a lot of it's coming out in allergies right now, then the purpose of this talk right now is to say, likely your gut is involved in one way or another. And we want to talk to you a little bit about that.
I want to hear, just put a Y in the chat if you think you have GI issues at all, like anything going on. It could be reflux. It can be just like gas, pain, which people talk to us about a lot. It can be like you're walking around, you look like you're pregnant. You're like, wait, what's going on here? That I hear all the time, right? Like, I ate something and now my stomach's just sticking out. It can be like gurgling. It can be some kind of pain. It can be constipation. It can be stool. It can be all kinds of things. So sounds like a bunch of you are, a lot of people are having some GI symptoms.
And I think that we can Kara and I can both say in our practices that since COVID, everything is just kind of amplified. Many people are just taking longer to heal. Many people are taking, and we're saying, like, the big container of COVID. So all the stressful component of COVID, the COVID virus itself, for some people, if they struggled with getting COVID vaccines, we're just calling it the COVID conundrum has made it so we've been in practice for 20 years each. And this is the most inflamed we've seen people.
Definitely. This is without a doubt. We've been in practice I think it's like actually much, I think we're like combined 35 years or something in practice.
Okay.
We're old. Okay.
Well, that makes it sound really old.
That is really old. Yeah. So I'm just saying, I think that the medical practices or the medical continuing ed we go to, it's really interesting. And we've talked about this a bunch, that all the other doctors too are saying, are your patients more sick? Like, what is going on with people? Are they more sick? And we're like, is it the environment? Is the water toxic? Is it just too stressful? Is our food supply all messed up? We're always trying to figure it out. But in that, there's always this GI component. So we have to go in and treat the gut. So I know it's kind of a stretch. Sometimes people are like, why are you talking to me about my GI system? I have like eye inflammation and stuffiness in my face. And like, why are you telling me to take probiotics and stuff like that? And it's really because it's rooted in our GI systems, a lot of this pathology. And so when we went to naturopathic medicine school together, and our teachers were these older, they were all like white men. I'm not really sure why, but they were all older.
We had so many women. Come on, stop.
We did. But the older people were all white guys. We had a bunch of women who were super awesome, who were like running our clinic and working in hospitals in Seattle and stuff like that. And they were amazing. But the older people were all these guys, and they were
also amazing.
They were awesome. And they taught us to treat the gut for like every condition. You know, we'd be in the dermatology class, treat the gut. We'd be in the class about depression, anxiety, treat the gut. Every class was treat the gut. And that was before we knew that most of the immune system, like 95%, is in the GI tract. That was before we knew like 95% of your serotonin is made in the GI tract. We didn't know anything about probiotics, right? We were like really out there suggesting probiotics. And now it's like probiotics for every specific condition, right? We had no such thing as small intestine bacterial overgrowth. That was not even a diagnosis. It did not exist when we went to medical school. So things have shifted in a big way here, but I will tell you, I see a bunch of my patients on here. You all come in every week and tell me how your gastroenterologist never asked you what you're eating, never asked you about anything about your lifestyle, like, are you stressed, anything like that. And it's like a disappointment I just hear from people. So I think it's really hard for those doctors. They don't have time. They're doing procedures. We don't do the procedures. Like, I don't know anything about that. They do a great job on that. But I think we all need to really look at what we're eating and how we're dealing with our GI systems, because it is the root of all disease and inflammation. It's a real issue. You are what you eat is like, my grandmother was right. Unfortunately, she was totally right.
Well, but we are also a product of our environment, and a lot of that we can't control. So Kara and I do a lot of environmental toxin testing on our fertility patients, specifically and for our longevity patients, looking at kind of how they're aging and handling things. And there is a degree of contamination that is pretty outrageous in our modern day society. And so we're just up against a lot. And so that's why it really matters.
Can I say something about that?
Yeah.
So I think we've probably ordered, like, I don't know, thousands of these tests, right? We've ordered thousands of these tests. I've never seen anyone's come back clean. I've never, ever seen anyone's come back clean. And even like mine, and I don't know, even after like doing a detox or whatever, they never come back clean. You cannot possibly expect to avoid all the toxins in the environment. But one thing you can control is the food you put in your mouth. So that's a really important piece, right? Hillary, are the farmers markets going where you are right now?
Yeah.
Okay. So for us, if you're on from Connecticut, the first week of June or mid-June, the farmers markets are starting. So it's good to like make note of that. This is just a tip on food and food supply, because we're going to get into more of why we're doing this, but I think it's good to have action tips for you. I think that getting a CSA membership rocks. I love having a CSA membership, and that's community supported not acupuncture. It's the end of the day. Agriculture. So a CSA, it means that you buy some kind of share. You can just get a small share at a farm. And for about 16 weeks where I live, the farm will give me once a week. It used to be like a farm basket, but now I can kind of choose it a little bit and alter it, but they'll give me whatever's in season and what they picked that week. I love that because then it makes me eat things I would never eat. I would never buy and I would never see in a store because you don't want to waste it. So that's a really good thing to look at around my area. Do you do one out there, Hill?
I don't do one here. I used to, but
It's
I do.
you have better
Yeah,
grocery stores than
we
us.
have great grocery stores, and there's a farm stand in my town, so I get everything from the farm stand. So one thing what we love about when you're eating farm stand food is that you are getting a lot more dirt, and you're getting a real local source of food supply. What's living in the dirt is partially a lot of the microbiome that's feeding our gut health. So what we want to do is we want to have a huge variety of fruits and vegetables and lots of what we call bioflavonoids and all the different colors of bioflavonoids. We want to be eating an anti-inflammatory diet for us. So Kara, for those of you guys that haven't watched Kara and I a lot together, it's really fun because we have very different body structures, very different body types, and very different illness processes. But what we both need is we both need a lot of plant bioflavonoids, a lot of fiber, right?
And that's everyone. Yeah.
But our inflammation shows up in really different ways. So I get rosacea, that's new. We're both getting new things because we're getting older, and we're up against the modern society after the COVID pandemic, which is what I'm calling is kind of the biggest kind of health debacle. Like, just now is the urgency, like we actually have to really invest and work on our health. So, but when you're eating the dirt from a local farm, you're getting a lot of extra additional microbiome. It's very different than when something's like from Costco in a plastic container, right? When it comes straight from the farm, it's been around dirt, you're eating dirt, you're like, bugs have just recently been on it. That's good for you. That's all really good for you. And sometimes this over hand sanitized, over everything going into a plastic box, the foods, it's having an impact on our health. So that's why we really want you to get in touch with a farmer or be in touch with foods that have just come off of a farm for the summer months. It's a fun, exciting way to eat. Like, try to Kara was just talking about eating with our last live that
Wait, can I stop you for a sec? I just want to talk about the microbiome before we get into that, because that's the great segue in, but I want to go back to that because I think that allergies is a big sign of issues with your microbiome. And we have evidence, this has like been known for a really long time in the hygiene hypothesis, that children who aren't who actually don't get any exposure to those bacteria, like children who are born by cesarean section, they don't get a really good microbiome set up. They're more at risk for allergies. And one of the ways that you can reduce that risk is if you're pregnant, you take probiotics, because the probiotics like actually pass through the GI tract into the uterus to the mom, to the baby from the mother. That's so crazy. But we know that if women take probiotics in pregnancy, the kids have less asthma, allergies, and eczema. So how is that? It's because it's your microbiome determines this allergic response. It's really important. So it's this whole living host of like millions and millions and millions of bacteria species that actually make up more of our cells. Like there's more DNA of those bugs that live in us than our DNA. That's actually a crazy stat, I think. So one of the really big things about buying from the farmer's market is because you're there, right? You're like picking things up, you're touching the fruits and vegetables, and you get them on your hands, and inevitably you touch your face, they get in your mouth, And one of the things about our COVID times was we got obsessed with hand sanitizer and washing our hands as we, okay, fine, I get why we did that, but we had all that stuff, and then we touch our food. Even my hand sanitizer, if you're here from and you go to my work and it's like the lavender hand sanitizer, I will wash my hands 5 times after the lavender hand sanitizer, seriously. And then I'll go to eat like some nuts at my desk and I can still smell it on my hands. And then I'm eating my nuts and I'm like killing my gut bacteria without a doubt. I'm drinking water. This is filtered water, and it has lemon juice in it. But if you drink water from the tap, you're getting chlorine in it. Chlorine's good. Like we need chlorine in our water. Okay, fine. But if we put it in our bodies, it's killing our gut bacteria. So that's what it's for. It's an antimicrobial. And Hillary's talking about all this packaging, like prepackaged food. Even if I buy, which I do buy the organic blueberries at Costco. But I realized that they put they spray it and there's all kinds of antimicrobials on there. So they last longer, even though they're organic blueberries, they still have antimicrobials on there. And I realized that that's killing my gut flora too. So no matter what I do, I'm killing the gut flora every day because I'm just, even natural antimicrobial packaging is still bringing down that population. So I'm more at risk for allergies, inflammation in my joints, all that kind of stuff, because my gut flora is getting nuked like every day, no matter what I do. It really is true. Oh, toothpaste. Don't even get me started on the toothpaste. I won't go there because they're so nasty and you end up eating a lot of it. It's so gross. Like, and my kids are really into like the gross kinds of toothpaste.
Okay. So what can we do? Well,
what can we do?
What we can do is, one, we can start to eat more dirt, because the other thing that she said is if the mom's taking probiotics, it protects the kids. But if the kids play in the sandbox and the kids play out in the garden and kids play out in the dirt, they're significantly less likely to have asthma or eczema or allergies. Okay. So the more dirt, the more outside, the better. And for us adults, that kind of translates to, well, gardening is amazing, being out in the dirt, being out in the soil, but eating food where you're interacting with food peels, with dirt, like she said. So it's interesting that it turns into this game of how many critters and how much biodiversity can we get inside of us, and as well as making sure the foods that we're eating every single day aren't triggering us. Okay. So many people in our beautiful land of the US of A, if we're not paying attention to what we eat, I just was in New Orleans.
Oh boy.
And
sweet tea all day long.
In New Orleans, like I loved it. It was my favorite place I think I've ever been, really, on one level. And yet, like, I was pretty horrified by the food situation, being kind of a snobby Californian myself. But it's just literally like things in plastic, sweet teas, beignets, all kinds of sandwiches, fried food, this, that. So if we're not paying attention, and I know that might be an extreme example, but there's people who live there and that's what they eat all the time. If we don't pay attention, most Americans end up kind of eating the same foods over and over and over and over. And most of them consist of like wheat. It's always the wheat and dairy, wheat and dairy, wheat and dairy, wheat and dairy. My daughter just picked up lunch for us. I walk out, she's eating a grilled cheese. What did she have this morning? I think she grabbed a bagel and cream cheese. Okay, that's like the same food. You're eating the same food over and over. Wheat and dairy, wheat and dairy, wheat and dairy, wheat and dairy. It can really happen for kids, and it can happen for us when we're not paying a ton of attention to our biodiversity that we're eating. And so that over time can significantly contribute to gut inflammation and can contribute to microbiome issues. So many of us, when we're looking at patients and we're thinking, okay, they're having issues with joint pain, chronic back pain, headaches, fatigue. They're having issues with chronic allergies, eczema. They're having heavy cramps, endometriosis. They're having
brain fog, anxiety, depression,
insomnia. Then what are we going to do? We're going to go straight to look at what the heck are you eating every day? And is it medicine, or is it an inflammatory, like, is it lighting a match in your gut and causing inflammation, killing your gut microbiome and putting a fire where we want it to be really dank and cool and dark and like juicy, and it's literally the gut gets fiery. So we're seeing increased rates of colitis, ulcer, just all along the gut microbiome. There's more celiac disease than there used to be. There's more diverticulitis. So there's a lot of inflammatory bowel disorders. And for some people, it might not look like a diagnosable inflammatory bowel disorder, but it's showing up more as, like, for me, it's rosacea. So that is a direct, when Kara and I was under some stress, and she's like, look at your face. It's like 3 times as bad, because it's a direct, it's my stomach is showing up literally on my face. If I do a good job, it gets better. If I acne is another real one that's very connected to the gut. So we want to kind of inspire everybody to start to really think about foods, what you're eating. It is the medicine that we need to make it so we live a long, beautiful life. And it's hard, if we're not paying attention, to not keep eating the same thing over and over.
And there's a really horrible situation where the things you eat and the things you crave are the things that actually bother you and create this kind of response in your GI tract. So let's give the basis of that. And so I think in your mind, if anyone listening, just think of the 3 things you crave and the 3 things you like want to eat every day.
I know. I was going to say, if anybody has access to the chat, I know some of you are on your phones, but if you're on your computer or it's easy, I would love to hear just what was the last meal you had, kind of abbreviated.
Okay.
Like, because it'd be kind of fun to see what, is it, am I right? Like, are most people eating sandwiches or some kind of cracker situation, or pizza? Yeah. And so wheat and dairy. And so, yeah, so we want to, what we have noticed over these years is that if we really work on the gut, and it's not magic for everybody. I have a couple patients watching me, wink, wink, I see you, that have been working really hard on their kids' food sensitivities and their guts, and they're still having wild allergies. So it's not like it's this like instantaneous thing. It is a long kind of, this is where we're getting into more chronic disease management and chronic illness management, so that look at some people are doing great. Look at salmon.
I know.
Sweet potato, great.
Some of these people, I like the curry and vegetables.
Yeah. And it's not like any one meal, right? But like when you can start to see, okay, it's hard to, most people who are not eating something that's the faster food are really working on it, right? Or they're making a big effort. And what's interesting is, as we eat foods, and if we get exposed to, say, COVID, and COVID causes inflammation for us, it can be that the time directly after COVID, during our COVID recovery, our gut is a lot more reactive than it was, because our microbiome got a little bit crushed from COVID. COVID is a very intense virus. Whether you had a strong symptoms or not, it is an immune suppressing virus, which means it allows other critters to grow and get a lot of momentum. So a lot of the patients who have long COVID it's because they have a lot of critters that are hiding underneath. COVID suppresses their immune system just enough that the other critters come to play in the dance party, and it's causing a lot of longer chronic infections. So we're seeing patients that are having major GI issues, one from the COVID, but 2 after the COVID, when they're in recovery, and they've gotten a lot more allergic or sensitive to foods, or having gut issues.
Yeah. And also just our lack of people. This is the problem with our little tiny patients, because they didn't get exposure to germs. We were wearing masks and washing our hands all the time. A lot of times just, passing a drink or a glass to someone, you're getting that those bacteria from their hands on your hands, and you're getting those, and you're always, your immune system's getting that exercise, you know, being exposed to bacteria and viruses and all kinds of things. And we just were in isolation, you know, I was exposed to the stuff at my house, you know, so that wasn't a lot going on. And then people all started making bread. So let's talk about how the everybody around here was like a really good baker by the end of COVID. It was like a homesteading Connecticut situation in my neighborhood. I mean, we were like literally bringing meals to each other's houses because I was like roasting chickens and like passing them to the neighbors. Like it was ridiculous. Because we were all so bored that we were cooking. But making bread during COVID was a big thing I saw a lot of people do. And not that I'm against eating bread, period, but I think we need to explain, Hillary, what gluten does. So, and you know, if you're on here and you're our patients, you know, we're not totally dogmatic and crazy about things. We try to be pretty chill and like realistic, and we're not, you know, we try to work with kind of everybody and where we can meet people. And so as far as gluten, though, it's really important to note that one of the big things going on with the GI tract, and this is what leaky gut is. So let's just talk about what leaky gut is, because I think we're seeing a ton of it, right, Hillary? I mean, a ton of it. That and SIBO is like unbelievable. So there are in our colons, in our GI intestines, there are these cells that line the intestines. And think about it. I think this is so interesting that inside that lumen of all these like tubes of stuff that, you know, think about like Vlad the Impaler and people who like pull out people's intestines, you know, that's Count Dracula, Hillary.
Oh my gosh. Wait, what? Okay, I'm explaining. This is what the lumen looks like of the GI.
Okay. Well, there's a lumen. So anyway, what I'm saying is there's like so many tubes of intestines going on. Like they're just incredible tubes of intestines. And what happens is in there, that's actually outside the body, right? It's like your food that's outside your body, even though it's inside our bodies, it literally is outside your body. So you can like pull out your intestines and still be living, you know, that was like a form of torture. That
consider the outside world.
It
From
is.
the mouth to your anus. The entire tract is considered the outside world.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? Right. And what's happening is we're putting things into it. Our body processes, pulls out from what it needs. The rest of it's supposed to go through the trash dumpster. And then the outside world stays in the outside world, and what is meant to come into the inside world, the body takes care of. And those are cells that are called enterocytes.
And that's why 95% of your immune system cells are in your GI tract, right? Because your immune system's lining this whole lumen and figuring out, is that self or not self? That's the immune system job, right? So there's a bacteria, there's a virus, there's a fungus. That's not self, attack it. Set up a system, get the army going against it. And so what happens when you eat gluten is these cells in the lining get a bigger junction. It's called a gap junction, because you have to get your nutrients in, right? And proteins and stuff from your food. But you don't want it too big, because then a bigger protein comes in and then your immune system gets a big response. So gluten, even in a healthy GI tract, not a person with celiac disease, not a person who has any kind of actual pathology in their GI tract, a healthy GI tract will get a bigger gap junction between the cells. And so it's more space for bigger proteins to come in. And guess what? Your immune system notices that, and inflammation happens on the lining. That's the basis of leaky gut. And that is where we know now that autoimmune disease really starts. So your body can start to have these big reactions. So that's what leaky gut's all about. It's inflammation along that lining. And it's a big deal. It's a really, really big deal. And so I think we're seeing a bigger degree of that. Stress can cause it. Your microbiome being off can cause it. All kinds of things can cause it. Infection can cause it. But one of the big things is gluten can cause it. So that's one of the ways why going off gluten makes people feel so much better. It's just, it is an anti-inflammatory diet to go off gluten. So it's kind of a bummer. Like I would resist that and tell people they could eat cake and have bread, but it's a reality, right? Like, I don't want to tell people not to eat that stuff, but you kind of have to sometimes.
Well, especially if you're healing from something acute, or if you are having symptoms like allergies, right? So if you have really bad seasonal allergies and you're in allergy season, then you come see one of us and we're definitely going to put you on an anti-inflammatory diet. And an anti-inflammatory diet in general is eating mostly fruits and vegetables, really clean meats, really good fats. It looks a lot like the Mediterranean diet. Though individually, what we have learned is people make reactions to foods that they, one, are eating very regularly, two, that are sources of like glyphosate or are sort of not organic or just in general are a more toxic food source that damages the microbiome, but that people, or they're eating foods a lot, repeat foods a lot, and then their immune system is starting to make a reaction. So there's what we are wanting to do to treat long-term inflammation, to support your longevity, to support your hormone balance, to prevent dementia, all the things, is to make sure that your gut microbiome stays really healthy, that you are eating foods that you are not having a reaction to, that, and I'm arguing that it changes over time depending on where you are in your life, stress-wise, age-wise, hormones make a big difference, or post-viral exposure or post-bacterial exposure. If you go to Mexico and get a GI virus or get Montezuma's revenge, you better believe your microbiome looks different, and the way that you're absorbing foods is very different than before you had that GI virus. And what's really fascinating is as we age, we get just the really fun thing about medicine in 2023 is, because we told you the hard part. The hard part is we're up against a lot, and it's kind of a hard time to be a doctor because people are, and it's harder time to be on the planet with our bodies. We're sicker than we were in general. But the really fun part about it is we have so much great information. And before, it used to be that like stool testing, they literally used to like look through a microscope and try to find critters. And now they're just running DNA code of critters. So we can test really easily, like, does this person have Giardia, crypto? Do they have old critters in them? We have pretty good food sensitivity testing, right? So like, is this person reacting to every food they eat? Or are they pretty sensitive to dairy? Are they sensitive to gluten? Are they sensitive to almond because all they do is drink almond milk because they're avoiding dairy, right? So we can use really targeted testing to individualize protocols. And that is a really fun thing about practicing medicine in 2023, not even to mention all the genetic stuff that we get to play with as well. So it's a really fun, exciting time, and a great time to be empowered about what's happening in my body. How can I fix it in the name of prevention and in the name of good fun and good health?
Yeah. And I want to add to that because I think just it's sort of this concept of knowledge is power, right? So now we have all these tools that actually have become pretty good. So it used to be that food sensitivity testing was junk. I mean, most of the tests I think out there are junk, actually, but I think now we have really good ones and they can guide us. I mean, I cannot, by talking to you, figure out if you're reacting to the green beans you eat twice a week. I just can't figure it out by talking to you. Neither can Pauline, the nutritionist, and she's super awesome. And so one way people do it is they do a allergy elimination diet, which Hillary and I find that some people need it. And if we recommended it to you, I mean, you absolutely need it.
I know I have people on my call who are doing my detox currently. So,
well, that's a bit different than what I'm talking about. But I think that in general, we think that a really restrictive diet is a terrible idea for your stress hormones, and that kind of overrides everything. So stress has a huge role in GI tract, and it's a two-way street. Like, you're stressed in your mind, it's going to affect your digestion. Your digestion's off, it's going to make your mind feel more stressed.
And not just your digestion, but your gut microbiome.
Absolutely. Because
those critters don't like you to be stressed either.
No. I mean, I thought that French fry study was really interesting recently. Hillary and I were just in Boston together, and we went to a French bistro and ate French fries. And then I told her the next week, meanly, that there was a study on people who regularly eat French fries, so it was not us. And that people who eat French fries are more likely to have anxiety or depression. So that's really interesting as a stat. And that's all about the inflammation in the GI tract. And so affecting your microbiome and it actually producing inflammation actually in your brain, which is unbelievable. But there's a lot of science that really backs all of this up at this point. And so an allergy elimination diet when we went to school was like the gold standard. But I will tell you that it just doesn't make sense in our lifestyles when we have these food sensitivity tests available. It just doesn't make sense because we should do the food sensitivity test. See, first of all, we can tell right away, do you have leaky gut from that test? So it's like a screening test even. That's phenomenal to know. And then the other thing is, then we can guide, there are specific things in those tests that, and if if you're a person who's done one with us, how we talk about it. We talk about it exactly the same way. I'm guaranteed that we say, okay, this is not really real. I see this come back on a lot of the tests. Don't worry about this. This is part of this pattern. This goes all together. Get rid of these 5 foods. And so we can really tailor like, okay, there's like 2 or 3 things you have to eliminate from your diet. And sometimes you just eliminate them a little bit of time and bring them back in. So those tests are phenomenal and totally worth it. And so that really guides us these days. It makes it so much easier than this huge process that is stressful. Should we read Courtney's comment? Because I think, Courtney, you've worked with both of us for a while, and I think this is really important. So she did do, a program with us and get off a bunch of food. So anyway, she said, this works 100%. I'm currently eating this way now. I never knew it could also help allergies. So she didn't come for allergies. She came for other things, and we worked on her GI system, and this is what happened. And she said, I've been an allergy sufferer for 28 years, couldn't even wear contact lenses this time of year because it's nasty in Connecticut now. Honestly, it's just like pollen out in the air. And this is the first year I've had no issues. It's unbelievable. I feel so good. I hope it's the person that I think I'm talking to.
I think that's my patient from California.
Oh, I
put an H or a K.
Oh my gosh, that's so goofy. Okay, so we have 2 of these patients having the same thing. Well, if it's my patient, she's been doing work outside like all the time too, like major kind of work, like clearing property and outside all the time. Oh yeah, see?
You're Courtney.
Yeah. And so she should officially be so sick right now and miserable. And you know what else would happen is her back would flare up, which is one of those kind of joint pain things. For me, my hands will get swollen. And sometimes I just take it. Like I have to say, in August and September, I just deal with the swollen hands and I eat my tomatoes, but I really shouldn't. And if I had other health issues if I wasn't like perfectly healthy, if I was like suffering from whatever, getting migraines all the time or whatever, I wouldn't eat those tomatoes in that season. But I happen to, for 2 months a year, I'm going to really eat a ton of tomatoes because they're delicious. But I notice it right away. The tomatoes, the joint pain. It's like, it's like, wow, okay, this is real. And so she also says that she had to take prednisone this time of year. It was that bad. So this is just like literal testimony from someone who did this work on treat the gut, and like all the inflammation went away. So, I mean, it's totally real. We didn't plant her. We didn't even know which Courtney it was.
But I have one that could have said the same. So that's,
I know. So I think this is a really good thing okay. So somebody also did yard work outside and got itchy eyes. So let's talk about the rain. We had a ton of rain that not this week's been pretty nice, but we had a ton of rain in Hillary in California. Nicely, you've had a ton of rain because sometimes we're worried. And when I'm at Hillary's house, I'll be like chit-chatting with her in the kitchen. She'll be like, why do you have the shower on? I'm like, oh, it's just heating up. She's like, we have a water ban. You have to go get in the shower instead of talking to me. Because here we have no water issues, right? We just really don't. We take the longest showers. It's ridiculous. But like there, she's like, in and out 5 minutes. I'm like, oh, it's terrible. So they finally got rain and then the mold. So I think that happened to us. I think a lot of the folks that I'm seeing here, the mold. And so there's a real link with mold and GI tract too. And so it's not like, you're seeing mold in your house or whatever. We're just talking about like you're walking on the street, all this rain is bringing up a lot of mold stuff in the air, just like walking down the street, all of us, right?
And for some patients who have had more mold exposures, we'll do a whole separate thing on mold.
I digress. We should not do that.
But you become quite sensitive to histamine, you become much more allergic. So I have some patients on here that know that I'm always testing for mold and making sure that that's not a part of their background information. But what we want to do, sometimes it's tricky when you're working with patients, either in our individual practices or, sometimes we get to do these foundational pieces and sometimes we don't, because we're doing other things in the visits.
We do not have time.
So what Kara and I have been wanting to do for a long time, and we've manifested it now, is we're creating a food sensitivity party. Because
Hillary likes parties.
Because I like parties. And I feel like if it becomes a party, it's less like, oh my God, I'm going to test what I'm sensitive to. I'm going to see what I'm sensitive to. I'm going to have to take foods out. That feels like very hideous. But if it's in the nature of like, we're having fun, we're exploring, we're trying to learn about our microbiome, we're trying to learn if we have leaky gut, we're trying to create a foundational base for our health in this point in time. And like right now, in this point in time, with my stress hormones, with everything I'm up against, am I eating medicine or am I eating foods that are causing little fires in my body? And if I am eating foods that have little fires and I need to take them out, isn't it more fun if I know other people have to too? And isn't it more fun if we do it all together as a party? In my mind. So that's why I'm calling it a food sensitivity testing party. But what we're trying to do is to kind of motivate everybody to take real control of this one part of their life. Is it perfect science? It is not. Is it perfect medicine? It is not. It's just a tool and to create a real place of, okay, I'm reacting to oats. I'm reacting to almonds. Interesting. I eat those two things a fair amount because I tried to get rid of the dairy, but oh wait, oats these things are not great for me. And so now I have to take those out and rotate something else. People learn a lot of really potent information. And I know in my medical practice, sometimes I'm just doing other things. So I don't get to this for everybody. So we wanted to kind of offer a way to do it as a group, in a fun, easy way. So,
and I want to answer and dive deeper into all the things that come up a lot. You know what I mean? It's like, there's all these kind of like fad diets out there. I really want to talk about like rapid weight loss and the risk of that, and how to buy food and what to really look for and which additives are creepy and that kind of stuff. And I want to talk to people about like, what are the alternative milks that are better for you? Lectins, nightshades, all the stuff that's sort of like out there. Like, should I never have pea protein? Should I always have like protein powders? Like, what are some of the resources for like ordering at home? Like, I just want to explore food more. And Pauline's actually going to put, Hillary, I'm not even sure you know this at this point, but Pauline's going to run everyone's food sensitivity test, and pump out like a suggested meal plan for them, that's specific based on their results. That's like, really based on what we see all the time, and not like, oh, just based on the result, but like what's real in the result, because some of it's like, you don't have to do the whole thing. You know what I mean? Like you don't really want to like take the result at 100%. You want to really see the patterns in it. And so she's going to do that for everybody, which is cool too. Awesome. So it'll give you a jumping start. But I think most people won't have to do anything more than just that kind of like 5-week program where we have a few meetings and do it. Like, I just don't think there's anything more that is going to need to be done, because you'll have you'll know exactly how you should be eating. So I think we know, like my patient who told me once, like, oh, so don't eat like a jerk. I think we get that, right? Everybody gets that. Like, don't eat like a jerk. We get that. But do we know how we should be eating as an individual human being? Because I can tell you, Hillary and I probably know all the same like food stuff. We've been studying this stuff for a really long time. We go to all these conferences, we do all that stuff, but we still require different diets, right? We really do. So I think we have to dive into it so everyone knows their individual thing of like, what are you really supposed to be doing? It's really important.
And how is your microbiome? So the first step to understanding your microbiome is actually making sure that you're not eating foods you're sensitive to. The second layer is doing some microbiome testing, but it doesn't make sense to test your microbiome and treat your microbiome if you're eating foods that you're sensitive to. So it's like we're trying to create these foundational layers. And we want to do it in a group-like setting because one, we learn from each other. When I'm having a one-on-one, like just trying to download this really fast with a patient, it's not as fun or as informative if someone does a program, a detox program with me, or if we're doing this. So that's what we're trying to create in our practices. And if it is interesting to you, awesome, jump in. If not, leave it. But we just want to get more time to create the foundation of health for people in our practices and in our life, because it really matters now. Like in 2023, like we said, we have seen more sickness and more brain fog and more fatigue and anxiety and depression. And there's a lot going on. So we want to create that foundation of health. We use a food sensitivity test that I think I've probably done over 2,000 at this point. It's so old. We've been doing it. It's an easy finger prick at home. I'm going to create a video showing you how to do it. I've got mine right there.
Because we're doing it in this, like we're in it. We're doing it.
We're doing it. Yeah. And because I haven't tested mine for a while and I have rosacea that just has popped up. So I need support too. So you're going to do a food sensitivity test from home. The test gets delivered to you directly. And then everybody will get their results. Pauline will print out specific diets for you. And then we get to come together. We can do some breakout groups for who's doing this or who's doing that. But I want to talk about things that people ask a lot of questions about: protein bars, protein powders, like foods Kara was talking about, on the go foods. What can we do for this? Substitutions, brands, what are good things to eat or not eat? Where do we buy our meat? Where do we buy our fish? What fish are safe? What aren't? It's really interesting to see on food sensitivity stuff some people react a lot to meat. Some people have no reaction to meat. Some people react to a lot of fish. And, it's really interesting to kind of see how our immune systems are being hypervigilant. And really the concept is what you want to do is, if you're reacting to foods, we can heal ourselves. So you can take these things out. You can actually work on the gut. And like Kara's patient Courtney, or like several of my patients, you're healing the gut microbiome. Once you take out the foods that's causing fire and inflammation, you heal the gut microbiome. And then all of a sudden you're not as reactive to those foods. So it changes. If you're going through menopause or perimenopause, you might find you're having a lot more food sensitivities than you did. Like I said before, if you're post-COVID, if you're post-mold exposure, if you're, if you're post-radiation or something from cancer, everything's going to change that microbiome. So it's really interesting to just get a foundation for where you are now. If you have questions, you can put them in the chat and we'll try to connect you with questions. So Kara just dropped a link. There's a link there. If you're like, yes, this sounds super fun, you can pop on there. We've just created a course that lasts our food sensitivity party. I don't think Kara called it that in the description, but that's what I'm calling it. And
well, you know what? That one that I just gave you is the one Deirdre made for my practice, because people can use their HSA, or what's the other one that's not a HSA. So it's like you can use whatever those are because this is, it's legit medical. So you can for it there.
So
otherwise there's this one is the one that we developed for our group that we do for the fertility work, that you can buy it there too. So either way, and I'm not, it's not like I opened even the one Deirdre made. She just sent that to me because she was sending it out to people today to sign up. But I think it's kind of good because you get the test and then you get like all the info with it too. So it's like more than just, I just don't have the time.
And if you have,
it's like it's a statement on the state of our medicine. I just don't have the time to fully, really get into this stuff with people, but I really believe it's incredibly important. Like you are what you eat, and treating the gut is like the first place to start. It's incredible. Like, we had a few people write into us, but it's incredible to really see how people transform. I'm telling you, it's like a real thing. People who are like, have snored all their lives, all of a sudden their partners are like, you don't snore, and I like love you so much more now. Like weird stuff happens where I'm like, I didn't know I was treating you for snoring, but that's awesome. Or, it's like people come back and they're like, wait, this was like a sad situation where somebody came back and was like, wait, this is how you all walk around feeling? Because I have been so anxious and my mind races all the time, my whole life. I didn't know that this is what you all have. And I was like, oh my God, you're like 35 years old. It's so sad.
because
just from changing the diet this way, it's like these realizations that people have of like, wait, I don't have to have those headaches. I don't have to have that sleep problem. Like I can actually live better. It's actually a really incredible thing to see over and over and over again. So I think that's really important.
We just need to move away from using a ton of drugs to treat our symptoms and getting to the bottom of like, why do we have symptoms in the first place? It is mostly because of our diet and our gut inflammation. Like Hashimoto's illness. We've just helped change and shift a lot of people's stuff.
Oh yeah.
So that we are really excited to get to do a deeper dive with people that we care about from our practices, that when we're in these short visits, we don't get the time. So that was kind of our intention. We love working together. We went to med school together. We studied Chinese medicine together. We did 5 years of ridiculous amounts of intense work. And then we went out and did our own things. And now we're back together working in our fertility business. And if you haven't seen us, we're Doctors in Demand. Do you have that link? Does anyone have that link? We have a podcast every Monday, Wednesday, Friday at 8:30 Pacific, 11:30 Eastern. That's all about longevity and different kind of markers. And so if you have questions or you want to learn more, that's where we are trying to explore and have a lot of guests and be a source of info in the world. I know that there's a lot of health info out in the world, but it's our sort of version of what we've seen work over all these years being.
Yeah, that's actually really fun. And I think it's really cool, the idea of being able to like get these tests and get like more of a course around it, like, and not just like, okay, I did my results or whatever. So even if you've done this test in the last like 4 to 6 months, it's worth doing another test, because you change. Twice a year is probably a really good thing to look at your foods, because I cannot tell you how many of my patients are like, oh, I'm a creature of habit. And like, they literally eat the same thing every day. And the talk on Doctors in Demand today was on like eating 30 plant foods a week, which is one of the exercises in this program actually, is to like write that out based on your results. 30 plant foods a week. That's like not the same food every day. It's not the same lunch every day. It's not the same breakfast. You have to have variety for health. And we know that, and we have the data on that. So I think that's really important to think about, like 30 foods from plants, and it can be lentils and beans, and it can be herbs. And I talked about herbs a lot. Let me put that link in. You don't have it, Hillary?
I'll get it. I can grab it. You
can get it. Okay. All right. Yeah. And so that's like really fun, but doing that show, because it's just like Hillary and I talking, we just have fun, because we like to be like, oh, I saw this, and what did you, and then we get each other's opinions on stuff. It's kind of fun. But doing that show's brought up like where we are now on doing this testing with you all as a group, because there's so many cool tests out there that are so incredibly informative, and just they're just not run by regular MDs, and they can really prevent disease in the future. So I'm sitting here kind of talking to you, and I'm thinking about like what was going on with my grandparents when I was growing up, and like I don't want any of that stuff. And they were, 4 grandparents still alive, well, till I was like 14 or something. That's awesome. And they were great, and I loved them all. But like the arthritis, the like memory issues, I don't want any of that stuff. So I'm like really trying to make sure that my food I'm eating and what I'm teaching my kids to eat and what I'm like making at my house and stuff is in alignment with avoiding these totally preventable things. Like I'm not getting diabetic. There is no chance in hell I'm getting diabetic because I can control that, and it won't happen. And so I think that we all need to take that approach. Like we have all this information. Like I know if I eat those like 30 plant foods, which by the way, I'm way over it because I wrote my list out. I'll tell you all about it later.
Monday. What day is it? Okay. Okay.
What do you mean on 30 plant foods in a week? They count herbs. How many herbs do I have in a week?
I'm literally
like 30
herbs
in a week
detox from New Orleans, and I was like, this is a joke. I mean, I may as well just water fast when I'm here because that's the best option for me.
That's interesting. So
it was fascinating. I couldn't find fresh food. It was fascinating. So like, we've got a ways to go in the world, but we start with ourselves, we start in community, and Kara and I get frustrated in our medical practices when we're running around and we don't have time to sit and spend educating our patients the way that we want. And we love doing groups. And so we were really called to do this group. And if you want to jump in, we would love to have you with us.
Oh, the test, somebody's asking me, the test is included in it. Like we
buy the test. Order the test for you. We have it shipped to your house. We'll show you how to do it. It's an at-home finger stick. I'll show you exactly how to do it.
It's a $10 shipping fee. So we take care of ordering, like you can't order this test, like we have to order it as doctors for you. So that's the trick on the test. It's in there. It's already included in the program.
And there's 2 links. So Kara, the first one is if you want to go through our medical office or her medical office, and you could use an HSA, a health savings credit card. Because, if you guys are having health savings accounts, use them for good. And
because it is a legitimate expense, like you're doing, this is a lab test that we're ordering for you. We're reviewing it all together. It's just a group program as opposed to you coming to me individually for like an acupuncture session. It literally is the same thing. So it's a legitimate expense. It's real. So we thought we should offer that to people. Whereas we started this program just last week with our fertility patients, because we were like, fertility is all about just like optimal health. That's like really what it's all about. And so this was like a necessity there. And then we were like, well, let's do it for everybody because we don't have time to go through this stuff with people. So that's where this was born from. There's no description in the product or anything like that right now, because we're just offering it to you all.
To the people that we love. And if you've just done a detox with me, it's a great time to do your link. Okay, Kara, your first link didn't come through for everyone, only the Cultivate fertility link. Okay. Let's try it again. That's the mind body one. I got it. I'm doing it.
Were you able to open it, Hill?
Let me see. Yeah.
Got it. Okay, great.
So what's going to happen is, if you guys want to jump in with this, we'll get the test to you, and then we're going to have meetings where we're reviewing things together. Kara, do you have that structured? And then Pauline, the nutritionist, is going to help us. It's the nutritionist that we use for our fertility practice.
Yeah.
And practice. Many
so
people.
The structure is that we need a few weeks for everyone to do their tests, and then we're going to come back in the beginning of June as the party, as far as like everybody comes, and like we were like, okay, if you had this, like you have leaky gut. If you don't, okay, you're over here.
I have some breakout rooms and help people understand.
And we'll structure it. And Pauline's going to come too. So we have the nutritionist helping us out, and it's beyond the food sensitivity testing, because I really want to get into like the stuff you're hearing from like the New York Times bestsellers and all that kind of stuff about how you should be eating and kind of what our opinions on it. Because I just want to make sure that it's very often that we find that people are damaging themselves by these strict rules about certain things that aren't real for them, or they haven't thought about something that's like really obvious. So we just want to go through like these big themes in diet that might be life-changing for you, because you can try them out. We're going to give you all kinds of ideas. So
And it helps us based on the amount of inflammation we see. Like if you're a good candidate for intermittent fasting, if you're a good
yes,
candidate
because it's
for,
not good for everyone, people.
no. So like it gives us a real sense for who can kind of handle what diet.
Yeah.
Because diets are so individual, but the main concept is if we're eating things that are causing us inflammation, then we should take them out of our diet for at least a month. Heal, let our gut heal, hopefully heal, let our gut microbiome heal, and watch a lot of our symptoms kind of fade away. That's what we're doing here.
Okay, we're wrapping up, and thanks. I hope this was helpful for everybody. I put in the email to get to Deirdre because she's going to answer your questions better than we can, and she's going to fix all whatever tech problems are happening because she's awesome. So get that email over to Deirdre if you're interested or you have any questions or whatever, and she will get back to you and help you out with whatever issues you may have.
And you guys, anybody that's in my practice that has questions, you can just hit me up on Spruce or find me in some way. We'll support you through it if you're struggling with the tech or payment. But we're super psyched. We hope you guys come to our party.
All right. Thanks, Hill. So nice to see you.
Bye, everybody. Oh, have a great night. Go Warriors. Go Warriors. Go Warriors. Bye.
Bye.